Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, and today we're going to be talking about the most and the least popular grenades in Deep Rock. Now, I've been putting polls up on the channel. This has been going on for the last couple of weeks. We did it for each of the classes, we did it for each of the weapons, and we did it for each of the grenades. As well as, I think with almost all the grenades, besides maybe the first two classes, we had an option of picking all of the grenades if you used all of them, or if you used two of them pretty often. That one did not get picked, like, a whole lot. Most people had their preferred grenade. That one got picked a whole lot more on weapons. So for grenades, we have our most popular grenades here. And out of the winners when we did the original polls, Gunner's most popular grenade was the cluster grenade. Driller's was the impact axe. Engineer's was the proxy mines. And Scout was the cryo grenade. Now going into this, I figured that there would be two standouts, and I was kind of right about this. That being the impact axes and the cryo grenades, because everybody loves those things. And I understand why. I really love them too. I use them a ton, especially the impact axes, and the impact axe was the one that won. Impact axe came in at 46%, where cryo grenades came in second at 30% of all the votes. Clusters came in third at 14%, and proxies came in last at 9%. That doesn't necessarily mean proxies are bad, they're just the least popular out of the most popular grenades. And that was somewhat what I expected. I wasn't sure if proxies or clusters would be the least one. I figured the impact axes and the cryos would be the top pick. The impact axes have so much utility going for them. They count as melee damage, which is a super good damage type to have in Deep Rock. Almost everything is weak to melee, so you get that going for it. This also helps you stack it with the perk Vampire, because anytime you kill an enemy with your axe, you'll get health back. That's really nice. Your impact axes may not actually break when you kill something, or when you just throw an axe near something and it technically hits it. In that case, you can actually go and retrieve your axe. You can retrieve your axe if you completely miss, which is super useful. You get 8 axes in total. You can have multiple resupplies of your axes, where if you have 4 or more axes, or I guess more than 4 axes, you can throw the remaining ones into the ground and get a resupply. That way you can pick those axes up again later. They're great for taking out flying things. They're great for taking out big things. They're great for taking out small things. They can hit multiple things because they also technically have an AoE. The axes work kind of weird in this game, but they have a lot going for them. You can also just use them for tons of utility. You can use them to crack Evo nuts. You can use them to clear mushrooms, to clear webs, to clear the vines. You can clear a lot of stuff with the axes, the electric crystals too. You have a ton of options with those impact axes. So wasn't too surprising that they came in first place. Second place, though, with the cryo grenades is also not too surprising. Cryo grenades are really good. If you freeze anything that's flying, you will kill it instantly. It's great for freezing big things. You can freeze oppressors, praetorians, dreadnoughts, detonators, and menaces. It actually works really well at menaces if you freeze them. And if worse comes to worse, you can always just throw them into a crowd and freeze the crowd. Frozen enemies are really good because you get extra damage when you're hitting those frozen enemies, whether it be with your weapons or with melee. So even if you're out of ammo, it's not a bad option, assuming you didn't run through grenades in there too. Third place was the cluster grenades, like I said. Cluster grenades getting that high is kind of surprising. I think it's mostly the spectacle. Cluster grenades can be really good against groups, and they can be good against big enemies if you can just toss it right underneath them. They get less useful if you have low gravity. If you have low gravity, they're not really that great, because then they'll explode out and kind of scatter further away. It's really easy to blow yourself up with them that way, which is not the funnest thing. It's also easy to blow up teammates. But they do their job pretty well at clearing up crowds, which, I mean, pretty much all of Gunner's grenades kind of do that, I guess, besides the stickies, but we'll talk about them in a little bit. And then we have the proxy mines. Proxy mines are probably the most self-explanatory, besides maybe the clusters out of these ones. You toss it down to create a safe area, or to create an area to bait large enemies through, or large groups of enemies through. That way they explode multiple times, and you get more value out of them. Also, if you accidentally toss one down, it's not a big deal, because you can go and pick it right back up off the ground, assuming it did not explode already, or you didn't wait too long for it to then explode, because they do have a timer, but the timer is very long on them. So, pretty straightforward there, and about what I expected. Now let's move on to the least picked grenades. And for these, we had the sticky grenade from Gunner, we had the high explosive grenade from Driller, the lure from Engineer, and the pheromone grenade from Scout. Out of these ones, our most popular grenade now was the lure, which wasn't too surprising. It won with 46% of the votes. We had the sticky grenade coming in second at 25%, the pheromone grenades coming in at 20%, and the HE grenades, the high explosive grenades, coming in at 9%. The HE grenades were also by far the least picked when we did just the Driller grenades. And there is a big disparity between Driller and Scout. That should be made apparent. There was pretty much a landslide in both of them. Impact axes and cryos won by a massive margin, where everything else was much lower. The HE grenades have never actually got above 10%, which is kind of sad. I wish that they would get buffed. Out of these ones, though, the lure I was kind of expecting to be the winner, unless maybe sticky grenades or pheromones somehow took them out. But I wasn't too surprised that lure won. Lure is a fantastic grenade. And for Engineer, pretty much all of their grenades were within 10% increments of one another. Same thing goes with Gunner. That's probably because they are the most competitive with one another. So with Engineer, you have your lures, you have the plasma bursters, and you have the proxy mines, all of which do a specific job and do it very well. Lures are super great for just taking care of enemies that are trying to swarm you. They're good at distracting smaller enemies. They're great for picking up allies. You can use them now for grabbing enemies. Well, you always could, at least for the grabbers, but now you can with Nemesis too. So if Nemesis grabs 2 of these, he's got both of them in his arms and he can't really do much, so he's easy to just keep shooting, especially since his grab is probably his most dangerous attack. Lots of utility there, and they also technically explode and deal a little bit of damage once they do break, so it's kind of nice if swarmers or jellyfish swarm around them that you don't really have to worry about it, because those ones will die. Those are all great things about the lure. Sticky grenades coming in second is not too surprising, although sticky grenades are one of the most basic grenades in this game. If you've ever played any other first-person shooter, you've probably played something like sticky grenades, whether that be Halo with the plasma grenades, or whether that be Call of Duty with Semtex, or any other shooter game that has some sort of sticky explosive that you can throw. They're pretty basic, but they are quite good. They also have a fear on them, which is a nice addition, so if you throw it on something like a Praetorian, it'll turn around, and then you can shoot it in the back really easily. They're also just good for blowing up multiple grunts in an area, and they're okay if you can throw it onto something like a Mactera. I have been blown up quite a few times by sticky grenades, and I also have blown up my teammates with sticky grenades before, which is obviously not great. It can happen, and unfortunately it does if people are running right in front of you. They do a lot of friendly fire damage, especially on the higher difficulties, so that is something to worry about, but you do get a lot of them, which is also a nice addition. Pheromone grenades coming in third wasn't too surprising, although I wasn't sure whether this one would beat out the stickies or not. Pheromone grenades are also pretty good. They can't hurt you, which is great. They can make it so you splash pheromones to all enemies within a group, and then they just start attacking each other, so it is very useful for resource management. All of Scout's grenades kind of are. Cryos can potentially just kill stuff outright, depending on if it's small stuff or flying stuff, and they can also just get you more damage whenever you put it on there. Same goes with the IFGs. They slow down crowds, and they also give you more damage, and they apply the electricity status effect, which is really nice. Pheromones make it so if the horde is still up and they're still fighting each other, you're going to get value out of it, which is really nice, especially if you have somebody like a Steve in there, where he's just sitting there beating them up while they're all trying to attack one another. The pheromones have been buffed since the start of Season 2, which is great, because before there might not have been a reason to take them, since you get the pheromone bolts with the crossbow. Pheromone bolts are really good on the crossbow, so buffing the pheromone grenades makes sense. I believe you can have 4 of these now. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Used to only be able to hold 2, which was not always the best, because if you accidentally threw your grenade instead of throwing a flare, there's half of your grenades gone right there, and that's pretty annoying. You can't go and pick it up after you chucked it. So it is nice that they got some love and got some buffs. I think that they deserved it. And then the high explosive grenades coming in dead last was not too much of a surprise. Like I said, the HE grenades have never got above 10% in any of the voting polls that we've gotten. They are by far the most basic generic grenade in the game. You chuck them out, they explode. That's it. It's every grenade in every other first-person shooter game, or really any game. You only get 6 of these, which is not that great, and like I said, they are kind of basic, so they don't have all of the different things that you can do, like with the impact axes, or even with the neurotoxin grenades, where the neurotoxin will mark out bugs, at least that run from it. It will damage all bugs that walk through it, and it will slow all bugs that walk through it, as well as you can light it on fire. So there is multiple ways that you can use that, and you still get a decent amount of them. Not as much as the high explosives or of the impact axes, but you get a decent amount. I would like to see the high explosive grenades get buffed. I'm not sure exactly how to buff them, though, without making them just stronger. I don't want to just give them more damage, because their damage is actually pretty decent, and I don't just want to give more of them, like just make it so Driller can hold like 20 of these, because even though that would be really fun, I don't think it would really add much to the actual grenade itself. It'd probably just be something that people would take because you get so much value out of them, you can just keep tossing them. And even then, if you had 20, I still don't know if I'd take that over just the 8 impact axes with how useful they are. Maybe give it some terrain damage or something. That might be an option. Maybe that way it can also clear up things. But this was an interesting poll. Thanks everybody for voting on that. I really do appreciate it. If you like these type of videos and you'd like to see more, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post them. Special thanks to the supporters of this channel. These are my members over here on YouTube and my patrons over on Patreon. They get early access to videos just like this. And if you would like to be a part of that, you can. There are links down in the description. And if you would like to see more of my Deep Rock discussions, there is going to be a full playlist right over here. One or the other, one place or the other. Click on that and that'll take you right there. Thanks everybody. Have a great day and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.